Hello, I'm Ritz Blues, and this is my GDQ submission for Titanic 2005, a game that came out 10 years after the last licensed game on the NES was released, about a film that was released 7 years before the game's release. Based off of the popular James Cameron film, although I find that James Cameron, while he did a very good job with the movie and there are a lot of memorable moments, I think he got parts of the story wrong that the developers of this game were kind enough to make right. And so we'll be retelling the story of Titanic and, more importantly, how it should have ended. But it is essentially a puzzle-ish platformer with, if I could try and convince you, some metroidvania elements to it. Anyway, I'll be offering a character incentive, a bid war between Jack and Rose. In this run, I'll be running Rose because her advantages have to be seen to really appreciate. I will say, though, that unlike Jack, Rose can run on ice and jump on it fairly well. It's not as effective ice physics as it is for Jack. Poor Jack, he can't catch a break on ice at all. However, Jack is faster than Rose, and ultimately the speedrun is a little bit shorter if you choose to go with Jack. Anyway, without any further ado, I'll go ahead and start the run in 3, 2, 1, go. So if you're not familiar with the film Titanic, I apologize, I will be spoiling it for you. But essentially, it is a love story where Jack and Rose meet on the Titanic as it is about to travel on its fated first, last, and only journey across the Atlantic Ocean. There's an invisible barrel for you. It includes a lovely cutscene, not cutscene, this game has cutscenes. It involves a lovely scene involving a smear on the side of a car window. I hope you like fireworks. You'll be seeing a lot of those. And then right afterwards, not long afterwards, the ship begins to sink. And that is where our story takes place here. And so Jack and Rose have to make their way out of the Titanic. Now you'll notice that Rose has a bit of a special gift. Walls are optional to Rose. It's a fairly complicated input process, so I'll try to explain it as best I can. You simply press up against the wall that you wish to jump through, and then hit the jump button over and over and over again until the wall caves in and gives in to your will. And then you eventually clip through the wall. I don't know that it particularly saves much time on this level, but it sure looks cool. I've taken a little bit of damage, and I'm going to try not to take too much, but if I die, it's okay. If I have to continue, it's also okay. It's just minor setbacks. For the most part, I'm going to just, try to avoid taking damage, though, because, death does slow you down a little bit, but it's not the end of the world if you die. This game also does a lovely job of keeping track of lives. Sometimes when you lose a life, you actually lose 2 lives. And sometimes you don't lose a life at all. And there we go, we just lost our first life. We get a checkpoint here. But that's okay. So you're probably wondering, Ritz, there's hearts everywhere. Clearly you should just be picking up these health pickups, right? Well, unfortunately, no. The health pickups don't actually do anything useful. They're not health pickups after all. They just collect buoys, or life rings, I guess, lifesavers. Which I don't know how many it takes. I've never tried to collect a whole bunch to see if you get an extra life or anything like that. But with the way the game hands out continues and extra lives, it really doesn't matter. Alright, so we've made it through the boiler room as well as the engine room. So now we are in the climb. The ship is rapidly filling up with water. We can't see our health anymore. We can't see our life count anymore. And in the Cusa Grande match, where I first played this was probably one of the biggest time sinks for everybody to figure out. because it's essentially an auto-scroller and a maze at the same time. And if you pick the wrong path in the maze, the water will rise, and you will not be able to make it back to the middle of the maze in time for it to not kill you. So we're gonna take a death here intentionally, so that we can get the checkpoint here, because these are some of the hardest jumps in the level, which we got. And we just grab the ladders. Ladders are also tricky. If you are holding a direction as if to jump towards the ladder, you need to let go of that direction if you want to change directions, and let go of all inputs and just stop moving altogether before you jump. Otherwise, you will jump in the opposite direction that you want to. But that's the climb. Now we enter the Metroidvania part of the run. This is probably one of the harder parts of the run for Jack, but Rose actually can make this particular part fairly easy by simply jumping out of the view of the camera. So now that we're out of the frame of the camera, none of the enemies spawn before coming on camera, and Rose's hitbox is way off the camera at this point, so nothing can hit her. And so we simply just make our way through these long halls of the Metroidvania levels. I would argue that this is a Metroidvania because it's a series of long halls and pathways with branching paths that lead to power-ups or dead ends or enemies. And then eventually you'll run into obstacles that require a power-up or an upgrade in order to get past, and then require you to backtrack to where you saw that obstacle before to get through it. So here's our obstacle. It is a locked door, and we're going to find the key, which will be our power-up that acts both as something that affects enemies and also something that gets us through that locked door. So there we go, we clip through that axe as if it wasn't even there. I don't know why. We dodged there. I tried to stand up and run as fast as I could, but because I didn't let go of the down direction buffer long enough, it wound up holding me in a crouch position. So just take that hit, go down the, there we go, the very stubborn staircase. So we're trying to find something that we can use to get through that locked door. So now we're going down to the lowest parts of the ship that are beginning to flood at this point, so we have our first swimming stage. Thankfully, Rose can hold her breath better than an Olympic swimmer and swim very effectively in her cocktail dress. Now, if you take the intuitive path and swim to the right instead of the left here, you're very likely to eventually make it to the a health power-up and a dead end. So we take an intentional death warp here after picking up our key. So there's our power-up. That's what we need to get past our lock. But it also provides us an advantage that we otherwise wouldn't have before this point in the game. It makes us completely immune to the axe enemies, by virtue of the fact that the axes are now gone, except for the ones that you see in the background. So now we just have to avoid debris. Actually, we're going to crouch down to despawn the large ones. So now we only have to worry about the water jets and the small pieces of debris. So yeah, we are now no longer dealing with axes because the key causes them to despawn. But unfortunately, the only thing worse than having to backtrack in a Metroidvania is having to front track in one. Yes, I said front tracking. In this case, for whatever reason, we backtrack through the water, we backtrack through the lower deck, but now that we're at the upper decks again, for some reason the game makes us start on the far left side of the hall. Not here, where we first started, no, all the way back. And so we have to do this whole segment, once again, it really is a good lesson in game design, right? You know, with a good Metroidvania, you want to have a lot of backtracking, but this game, it innovates with front tracking. And a very gripping level design, too. What with the staircase, door, another door, and still another door pattern, with an alternating pattern of carpets and broken light bulbs. This would be an opportune time to read donations, or take a selfie, or check your Twitter feed, or whatever else you want to do. Take a little break. But finally, we make it back, and the lock is now gone. We can leave. Hooray. So now we're on the surface of the Titanic, and we're gonna do a little clipping here. It's time for us to escape the sinking vessel. So once again, we'll clip out of bounds and try and make our way to the lifeboats. And we miss, and game over. That's okay. Only a small time loss there. So Jack and Rose need to escape now. We've finally gotten out from the lower decks after Carl locked us down there. So now we're gonna make our way to the lifeboats, and no, not these. These are no good. This one's no good either. So, nope, sorry, those aren't good enough. We have to find better lifeboats. Also, I don't know if you remember, but I loved seeing Tintin in Titanic. I mean, there was Snowy. I don't know where Tintin is, but I'm sure he's around somewhere. So, now we climb our way all the way back to the very top of the Titanic. Hooray! And hello again, Snowy. Here's our lovely lone musician playing his lovely tune as his ship goes down. And, well, I don't know where the lifeboats are. I guess we were too picky, we couldn't find the right lifeboats, so now we went down with the ship. But that's okay, because we'll go ahead and Olympic swim our way through here. During the Kuso match, it took me about 5 minutes to figure out how to climb on top of these from the water in the first place. Quite the feat. You actually have to stop moving and then press the jump button. Rose is not affected at all by the ice, so she can immediately run on it when she climbs on it. Unfortunately, all the debris from the boat makes for terrible platforms. So instead, we just swim under all of it here. I gotta give a shout out to Brosentia for picking this game during last year's Kuso Grande. It was a lot of fun. I managed to complete the game with both Jack and Rose by the time the match was over. But unfortunately, our time has almost ended. Oops, we missed our jump there, so we have to take this slightly slower route. That's okay. Yes, Titanic. You know, the original ending was very sad and depressing, even though it was a very memorable film and very romantic. And, you know, remembering how Jack and Rose were desperately clinging to life, floating in the freezing Atlantic Ocean, and hanging off of this escape boat and rowing off together with a happy ending. And that's time. So, yep, that is Titanic, 2005, with a much happier ending, in my opinion. You know, rowing off into the sunset. It's a lot happier than waiting for death, waiting for dead, waiting for the help, or waiting for unforgettable rescue. So thank you. Thank you for making Titanic 2005, whoever you are, you crazy people that made this. And thank you for watching. And I hope you enjoyed this and hope to see you all at GDQ.